friends, I've been playing Team Fortress 2 since day one. It's had many ups and many downs, and after nearly 11 years, I think it's finally time for me to say that TF2 has had its time. The sooner we can let TF2 simply exist as its own game and not keep trying to make it the next big thing over and over, the sooner we can stop expecting more than is possible from the dev team. With TF2 steadily taking up less of my general gaming time, I've been able to appreciate many more games that I've started taking a massive liking to. Good examples include Rainbow Six Siege, arguably the best FPS on the market right now due to its remarkably unique gameplay and thriving esports scene. And while my love for Siege is certainly high, it has not captured my heart nearly as much as the game that I'm about to introduce. Paladins, Champions of the Realm. A class-based first-person shooter developed by Evil Mojo Games, a dev team working within Hi-Rez Studios. I have so much love and admiration for this game, and I'd like to share that with all of you today as an overall preface to future videos that I hope to put out for this game. I thought it'd be a bit sensible to do an introductory video, rather than just having random tutorials pop up with no prior distinction. By the end of this video, I will give two key sections an overall grading, lore and gameplay, as Paladins has a nice bit of both. Without further ado, allow me to introduce you to this wonderful game. Paladins' setting is an interesting blend of sci-fi and fantasy. The aesthetic of this game is just so beautiful. The graphics aren't anything cutting edge, but that's not what you should be looking for in a cartoony game like this. The game takes full advantage of its cartoonish art style by giving both its characters and its world an expressive look. The 40 or so current champions are divided into three distinct factions. Champions under the banner of the Magistrate, led by Grand Magister Khan, the Resistance, freedom fighters under the leadership of former Paladin Valera, and neutral affiliates, champions who've entered the conflict for their own benefit. The realm was initially plagued with war and destruction. The original band of Paladins, led by Khan and Valera, fought to unite the realm. After peace was finally ushered after this conflict, the Paladins had disbanded, handing power to Grand Magister Khan and a council of former Paladins, now known as the Magistrate. The current conflict supposedly arises because the Magistrate outlawed the newly discovered use of crystal technology, to which the former Paladin Valera, now leader of the Resistance, revolted against the Magistrate's tyranny, with many champions in tow. Overall, I can't say Paladins has a great storyline that you'll be investing that much time and interest into, but to its credit, the game isn't too focused on giving itself a heavy amount of lore in the first place. The stuff they do give is merely supplementary to give the game a bit of extra character, and I think in the modest amounts that the lore has been given, it works to its advantage just fine. Can't have a game without gameplay though, so let's get right into the meat of the dish.
Huddle up, guys, let's do this! Wait, guys, huddle, come back!
Paladins employs 5v5 combat, where your selected character is who you're left with for the entire match. Yep, there's no class changing to create counters on the fly here. If your composition suffers, you'll have to rely on in-match mechanics and your own skill to turn the tides. Don't fret though, this is where the game's unique attributes ultimately come into play. Let's not get ahead of ourselves though, we should first meet the colourful cast of champions this game has to offer.
Buck is here to save the day! Smart and brave in every way. Oh, I didn't see you there.
The realm's champions are divided into four sections. First, we have frontliners, the bulky tanks who make their presence known on the objective. Here, you have bulky-ass mammoths like Makoa and Inara, irresistible charmers like Fernando, or even shouty boys like Khan. Damage dealers, all-rounders who cover the art of killing in many creative ways, be it Drogos' rockets, Victor and Tyro's good old ARs, or Charlene and Cassie's medieval marksmanship. Then we have supporters, the guardians of heals and buffs, be it the shamanistic Grok, the spooky Ceres, or everyone's favourite furry boy. And finally, we have the flankers. These mobile morons exist purely to cause hell for the enemy's back line and unprotected flank routes. Or, in the case of Skye, to keep your enemies distracted with your charm and good looks.
Go time? Hold up. Snacks, ammo, inhaler...
Each champion possesses 4 abilities and an ultimate. As a footnote though, your primary fire is considered an ability, so technically you have 3, but semantics. Once you've picked a category and settled into a champion, there's still plenty for you to do. As you navigate to your champion, you'll notice under abilities that 4 golden cards also exist. These are known as talents, boosts that provide your champion with an enhancement to a certain part of your kit. While you see 4 currently, an imminent major update will be removing 1 from every champion, returning to the original format of 3 when these talents were implemented. Only 1 of these talents may be chosen per game, and typically it is these boosts that your loadouts are built around. For example, direct hits on Drogos could deal more damage, Mako's shield can be placed down without having to move it yourself, Brock's lightning rod could also heal allies, or Buck's neck could be used to grant more damage while your enemy is slowed. Essentially, these talents most often boost the effectiveness of one specific ability. However, these abilities also have underlying boosts that your loadout can be built around. Speaking of which...
almost bulletproof!
Now we come to one of the core attributes that makes Paladins so unique in the market. When you hear loadout, you probably expect different weapons and utilities. Well, not here. The purpose of loadouts in Paladins is to improve the effectiveness of your kit's abilities and specific stats where applicable for your champion. What this means is that for the most part, no 2 players who pick the same champion will share the same loadout. For example, let's compare 2 different Buck players. First, we have a Buck who builds around net shot. He might max out his CD reduction and lifesteal to work in tandem with the ensnare talent to maximise both damage and life rip against netted targets. Another Buck might build around recovery, using the bulk up talent and then using CD reduction on top of the lifesteal or damage reduction cards that also enhance recovery. Hell, they might even throw a couple heroic elite cards or general weapon armor cards in to mix it up further. What we have here is a great case of variety done right. This both gives incredible versatility to how you can build your champion and also breeds some much needed variety into an increasingly stale selection of first person shooters these days.
Does it come in chrome?
Gearing up your champion is only half of the overall setup. Once you come into the game itself, you're next introduced to the final mechanic on today's list, the item system. These are 4 categories of item cards that are purchased with credits, of which you gain passively throughout the round and actively by pushing objectives, getting kills, healing as supports and other means that may be specific to some champions. The purpose of this item system is to connect successive rounds. The importance of outperforming your enemy is heightened by the incentive to take the lead in the amount of item cards your team can purchase versus how many the enemy obtains. Akin to the likes of League of Legends, an iconic game infamous for its high skill cap gameplay focused strongly on progression. Paladins' use of the item cards and credit system adds this type of progression that means each round of the game is no longer separate from one another. Your performance in the first round will have an adverse effect on your advantage in the next, a system which I personally believe is extremely well designed and works really well in tandem with the rest of the mechanics at the game's disposal. Currently, you can only purchase 1 card with each category, leaving you with a max capacity of 4 item cards. However, Update 2.01 will be lifting this restriction, allowing for multiple cards from the same category to be purchased, though I assume this will still result in the max capacity of 4. Personally, I think this only serves to further benefit the game's remarkable diversity. So we've talked in detail about who we're playing and what we use, but what are we playing?
I don't know who you are or what you want, but I will find you, and I'll be really not nice to you!
Paladins has 3 distinctive game modes, each playing uniquely and each featuring different sections of the game's existing maps. The first and most iconic game mode for the game is Siege. Siege sort of combines payload and capture points in that the first half of the round sees both teams competing for the middle point. Standing on the point builds up your cap percentage from 0 to 100%. This cap rate does not fade when your team leaves the point, After capping, a siege engine spawns, which you must push to a designated point near the enemy spawn, making siege an interesting blend of coth and payload in regards to the objective. Standing on the point while your team has more people on it, or standing near the siege engine as your team is pushing it, will grant you additional credits every second, incentivizing playing the objective as much as possible to widen the credits gap between your team and the enemy. Moving on, we have Onslaught, the game's take on traditional King of the Hill. Unlike other variants which treats the objective like a capture point, this game's hills are objectives that grant your team points as you maintain point presence. Winning Onslaught requires your team to reach 400 points by holding the objective. However, getting kills will also grant you points, so both point presence and the ability to outplay your enemies work in tandem. I'd have to say that this is my favourite take on King of the Hill to date. And finally, we have good old team deathmatch. Not much to explain here really, first team to 40 kills wins. And again, different sections of existing maps, yet no objective to be found. Some do feature a middle area of sorts, but for the most part it's a non-linear map that you have total freedom to explore. Of course, it's better to stick with your team, but no one ever stopped a good roamer, now did they? Paladins is just such a gem. In a diluted market of stale games and unoriginal knockoffs, it's just so refreshing to see such a creative take on existing formula, being able to develop upon it to become unique all on its own merit. The lore to Paladins isn't anything too impressive. The charm of the characters really comes from their in-game quotes and personalities. Their bios are pretty simple, and not much is done with the lore outside of in-game events such as Rise of Furia or Siege of Ascension Peak. While I'd say it's a story that's at least got an interesting theme behind it, it's middle-of-the-road rebellion against a tyrannical government kind of stuff, so for lore, Paladins gets a modest C. And for gameplay, oh boy, I'd say Paladins' different mechanics all come together to form incredibly solid gameplay. The standard genre of ability-focused classes serves as a stable template, but Mojo takes it a step further by building upon it and adding more depth to each champion with the loadout system, as well as the importance the item system has to the progression of a game. Gameplay comes to a resounding A+. Overall, what do I have to say? This game is just such a marvel. It's hated on by so many people because it seems to be a clone of Overwatch, even though that is quite silly, and I just feel like it doesn't get the love and attention that it really does deserve. It has a thriving esports scene, the game is more alive than it has ever been, and best of all, the dev team is communicative and dedicated. Paladins, you're a great fucking game, and I'm going to be playing you for ages to come. Thanks for watching this video guys. It's been one I've had in the works for a long time now, and one I was admittedly curious at making, because I was nervous. My viewer base is incredibly devoted to TF2, and so am I. I don't want anyone to think for a second that my love for TF2 has faded. While my short-term enjoyment for the game has croaked a bit, TF2's place in my heart will never be taken. That being said, Paladins has taken its own special spot, and I hope to very much interest you into playing this magnificent game, and perhaps into watching the future videos I hope to dedicate to this game in much more depth. But don't worry, TF2 will not stop. This has been the cup of coffee you all know and love, and as always, I shall see you next time, my sexy compatriots. Bye 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 bye!